Tropical storm Hillary has formed off the southwest coast of Mexico. It's going to be heading north-northwest. Will it be only the third cyclone to make a landfall in Southern California? And we'll talk about that. But while all of that is going on in the west, we have mostly nice weather coming to the east later Friday and over the weekend. And hopefully, not too much happens on the way to the weekend. And we'll have more on that too tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, which, of course, is brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York, and Southwest Suffolk County on Long Island. Back up the truck and get yourself all the mulch, topsoil, and sand you need. Come this winter, you can get all the salt you need. They are Long Island's largest rock salt source. And remember, it's hurricane season, so if you need anything to make sure you get through a hurricane or a tropical storm, not that we have one threatening anytime soon, but just in case, Omni's the place to go. 631-756-1125 for the best prices anywhere, and the website is
Omni True Value.
com.
Yes.
And Tempest by Weatherflow, the revolutionary Tempest weather system, is available. And if you get one, you can join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet, Joe. The link is pinned to the top of the chat board. It's also on the descriptor to this video. And should you decide to purchase this or anything else from the Tempest website, use the coupon code I want a weather station. And if you do,
you will get 10% off.
Yes.
Amazing.
It is amazing.
Yes.
So there's Hillary. I love these satellites. When you look at these systems in the Pacific, they always look so huge. In terms of the coverage and all the clouds and the convection. I was looking at the enhanced this morning, and it just was, enormous, as opposed to on the Atlantic side, they just seem to be a little more contained. And actually, there are two tropical storms that are visible here. You've got Hillary on the right, and on the upper left, you have what was Hurricane Fernanda, what is now Tropical Storm Fernanda, and that's moving on to the west and into the Pacific graveyard eventually, because it's already weakening. I think it got to a Cat 4 briefly, if I remember correctly. But Hillary's going to be interesting, Joe, because there have only been, now I want everybody to listen carefully, because apparently this message did not get across the first time I used it today, so we'll try now for the second time, okay? There have been only two tropical cyclones, that have made landfall in Southern California. There have been tropical cyclones that have impacted Southern California, but they have not made landfall there. Only two have. One was back in 1858, and yes, and the other was in 1939. Both of them were technically tropical storms when they made landfall. They were not hurricanes, so no hurricane has ever made landfall in Southern California. And that means that if this system, Hillary, based on the forecast track, were to maintain its tropical characteristics and make a landfall someplace on the way up into Southern California, it would only be the third time in 165 years.
That's amazing.
And isn't it, though? I mean, to think, and again, there have been storms that have impacted Southern California, but, somebody brought up to me a Hurricane Kathleen back in 1976, and I went and checked, and yeah, Kathleen impacted Southern California in the big way. In fact, I think it's still on record as Southern California's most costliest storm. It made two landfalls, Joe. Not one, but two landfalls. Both of them were on the Baja Peninsula, so it did not make a landfall in Southern California. So that's the distinction here that I tried to make earlier, but apparently it went over the head of a few folks. Welcome to everybody on the chat board, by the way, to tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show. It's a scheduled reminder that we will not have a show tomorrow night. Okay, so Joe and I are taking Thursday off. Joe is off Sunday as well, as he goes up to Vermont to not see whatever it is you see up in the sky because there'll be clouds around.
It's Stellafane. That's the name.
Cellophane.
That's the name of the conference, and
Right.
they should have known better than to invite me to make the keynote speech, because by doing that, they almost assuredly, and it's looking pretty much like that. I mean, going up there on Friday, Joe, is not going to be a picnic. I think there's a sharp weather front, and we'll get into that in a few moments here. Sharp cold front that's going to be crossing through New England, probably will move on past Vermont early in the afternoon. Out ahead of it, there'll be probably some spurts of heavy rain, showers, maybe a couple of thunderstorms, and then behind it, we have this unusually vigorous upper level low pressure system that will spend much of the day Saturday crossing through northern New England. And now, for those of you who are watching in the New York tri-state area or southern New England or points south, this will be, and we will stress, a very nice weekend. But for those of you who are going to be further north, closer to that upper level storm, I'm thinking, Joe, that it's going to be a day on Saturday where we're going to see a lot of convective type cloud cover, a lot of those big billowing dark cumulus clouds, a few pokes of sun, a gusty west northwesterly breeze, and unseasonably cool. Now, where I'm going in Vermont, normal high is 78, but I think on Saturday it's going to be, depending upon how much sun we're able to garner. We don't
Probably
get much,
not get out of the 60s.
It won't. You're right. It probably will not get out of the 60s on Saturday.
And it's going to be chilly at night too.
Yeah, but if it's cloudy, who cares?
Right. Right.
I mean, the thing that people go to, especially most people who travel up to this place in Vermont because they live in light polluted city or metropolitan areas, they go here to escape the bright lights. And of course, if it's cloudy, well, you ain't going to see anything. There's no lights or whatever. So I don't think we're going to see very much on Saturday night because it looks like we're still going to have a lot of cloud. And then just as everybody is packing up and getting ready to leave on Sunday, the upper low will move away, the skies will clear, and
that'll be that.
That'll be that.
Right. The Sunday show is probably going to be at 7 p.m. Okay, so I will solo on Sunday at 7 p.m. And Brandon Doherty, Joe, is the first to hit the tip jar tonight. Thank you, Brandon, for
Yay!
tossing in some coin in the super chat tip jar. And he's got what looks like, it says boss, somebody pumping a muscle with very pink hair. Okay, that works, I guess. Shall we continue on talking about Hillary?
Hillary, yes.
By all means, please do. So let's go to the technical discussion. The advisory on Hillary. And there it is. And this is the latest one, by the way. And they have it becoming a hurricane by midday tomorrow. And then they have it a major hurricane by 1 a.m. Saturday, as it starts to make a bit of a northerly turn, and then it's going to turn more north-northwest as it approaches the Baja Peninsula. Looks like a very close or possibly a landfall, based on the forecast anyway. I'm not sure what what location that is on that, where the peninsula kind of jettisons out into the Pacific there. But then they have it as they have it listed as a post-tropical cyclone of tropical storm strength, making landfall somewhere between San Diego and Los Angeles, but closer to Los Angeles than San Diego. The bottom line, Joe, with this is let's lay aside the once every, what is it? So it's every 365 divided by 3. So what does that come to? 55. So roughly a once in a 55-year occurrence of a tropical cyclone making landfall. Let's lay that aside. If it takes a track like this, there's going to be big rains inside, which I think is probably really the issue here. there's going to be big rains in Southern California, and I would say probably at least the eastern half of Arizona and up into southern Vermont. And we're talking,
Wait a minute.
5 to 10 inches plus.
What did you say? Southern Vermont?
I'm sorry, southern Nevada. Yeah, no, the last thing you want is to get, anything like that up in Vermont while you're there.
Hey, they've
Uh,
already had more than their fair share. So.
yes. But the rain is going to be a big deal here uh, for Southern California, maybe even a further up, depending on how far north this gets before it finally gets absorbed by something or another in the upper atmosphere. But um, on the other hand, at least for Arizona anyway, for the western half of Arizona, uh, unfortunately, the rain comes all too fast, and will out there, they get a quarter of an inch of rain from a summer, thunderstorm from a monsoon, and you get all this flash flooding all over the place because the ground is basically baked to concrete. But if somebody winds up with several inches of rain, at least the rivers there, which continue to be on the lowish side, will pick up some much needed water. I mean, if there's any upside, I guess that's it.
It's going to be. I'm wondering, if you live in Southern California, and if you get your local newspaper from Los Angeles or San Diego or Anaheim or whatever. I wonder if this is going to make front page headlines. Dangerous storm heading in our direction. That
Well,
kind of.
it just became a tropical storm today, and I don't know that other than the weather, other than the weather weenies that were, that look at this sort of stuff, I don't know how much of that has actually bled out into the general, into the general population and into the general media. I'm sure they're talking about it tonight. If they weren't talking about it yesterday or this morning, I would think they have to be talking about it tonight, given that it's Wednesday and we're talking about something that's going to happen on, you're going to have rain moving into Southern California probably sometime on uh, late Saturday night, early Sunday morning.
And just as a matter of curiosity, I did some checking, and I have found that not one, not two, but all three Southern California baseball teams are going to be at home this weekend. The Padres are going to be playing the Diamondbacks. The Dodgers are going to be playing the Miami Marlins, and the Anaheim Angels are going to be playing the Tampa Bay Rays. So there's a very good chance that we might see three Major League Baseball clubs in Southern California having to postpone or cancel a game on Sunday, maybe even Saturday night, because of Hillary.
Yes. And the model track guidance from 18Z or 2 p.m. this afternoon from the Hurricane Center you can see that the tracks are fairly tightly clustered. There are a few outliers, two of them that are furthest west and offshore, but the rest of them are all kind of concentrated.
Is that UK, a United Kingdom model, maybe? Or
yeah, that's the UK. Yeah, it's probably a variation of the UK Met.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that looks to be quite the outlier there.
Right.
And then there's one it's sort of like the others, but it's just on the western side of the envelope. And then you have some that are further east, but the cluster is pretty much where the Hurricane Center lays its forecast when they look at these things. And well, a lot of the tracks very close to San. Sure.
The wife is telling me something. What?
It's pouring again. Gotten so far.
0.7 so far. Joe, interestingly, and we seem to be the only ones. I mean, here in the Hudson Valley, Putnam Valley, we have had this rain shower that has been sitting overhead for the last hour and a half. And Mrs. Rayo has just come in to tell me that in our rain bucket here, locally in Putnam Valley, we have picked up 0.7 inches of rain in the last 90 minutes. Now, that hasn't happened down in New York City. It hasn't been happening up to Poughkeepsie or any place, but just us. How lucky are we to see that?
Yes, very lucky to see.
Kind of like Joe, like that character in Little Abner, Joe Bissell, with the rain cloud over his head.
Right, exactly. So there are your forecast model tracks, and we'll take a look at the GFS for the West. Very consistent. All the global models, at least earlier today when I looked at them, the the GFS and the Canadian were pretty much in lockstep in terms of this track. And the one question I have is, uh, what exactly are we going to be dealing with here with regards to wind and whether how long is it going to hold on to tropical characteristics as it moves northwestward? But you can see it here as it comes onto the view, this particular view, and I think that's a 9. Is that a 960? 960. So that would probably be a Cat 3-ish hurricane as it approaches Baja, and then it begins. Obviously, it's going to start weakening as it moves northward. The water temperatures there really drop off considerably when you go up the coast from south to north, and it gets up to about a 980, but it still has like a 95 low when it's halfway between LA and actually on the GFS it looks like it takes it right over LA. But forgetting about the wind for a moment, which the isobars are all sort of tight on the east side, which is kind of interesting. It'll be coming in off the Pacific, but
And I like that arc.
I mean
I
it's
mean,
just,
all that tropical moisture, it's going around the backbone of that. When I predicted this, at least on one of the evening newscasts, referring to it as the heat dome. But it seems to be all of that tropical moisture is being funneled up and around the back of the high pressure ridge that
yes.
dominates over the central part of the country.
So that would take the rain, pretty much all the way up and gradually diminish, of course, as it moves further and further north. But when it comes into Southern California like this, and dealing with the fact that we have this upper low that's going to be northwest of the surface of whatever surface low we have, dragging it northward, there's going to be a lot of tropical forcing pushed up into California and Arizona. I was looking, by the way, one of the interesting things I happened to look at by accident because I was playing around with the dew point maps in the east and then I switched over to the west. But the dew points get very high for this area. To see dew points in Arizona getting up into the upper 50s and low and even some lower and middle 60s. That's not comfortable by any stretch of the
No,
imagination. But
no.
it's probably going to be it's
Especially when
probably
you're
going
not
to
used to it. Especially
right.
when you're not used to it at this time of the year.
And I wonder too if it's going to be pouring, if it's going to be pouring rain for all of this. I'm sure they're going to have, pouring rain. Temperatures are going to probably be I'm going to guess in the 80s. I'm not sure how the local climate, handles all this sort of stuff when it happens, but at least their temperatures won't be. I hate to think they would be pouring rain with temperatures up around 100. In
Aye.
fact, let me just put up the thermodynamics and put up the temperatures just for laughs. And yeah, they've got, the GFS for Sunday. Yeah, I mean, they have the hotter temperatures are to the east because they're going to be out of it. And you see the hundreds that are up back in Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas. But
Right.
where it would be raining, say in eastern Arizona, it's mostly like low to mid 80s. Although there is a 94 down near the Mexican border there. And I'm looking at this is at 5. This would be at 5 p.m. on Sunday. So certainly the rain is going to keep the temperatures down, obviously, both Sunday and probably into Monday as well. And in terms of total rainfall, we could look at what the GFS is generating here. Then we'll switch over to the European. Uh, so here we go. Yeah, I would have thought it would have been more. Well, it's got this stripe that's inland in the northern part of the Baja Peninsula in that orange. That orange, but that's at least 10 inches of rain. So that looks like it would be sitting somewhere in Southern California. I don't know, maybe near Palm Springs. Even places like Death Valley would wind up
Right.
getting several inches of rain out of this. And notice the amounts are less when you go into western Arizona. WPC, see, this is the sort of thing where I would just sort of maybe want to more rely on what WPC is doing. And now this is 7-day rainfall, so some of this is probably whatever monsoon stuff that happens up until we get to days 5, 6, and 7. But they've got big rain amounts there in Southern California. The reds and the oranges. The oranges are at least 5. I don't see any yellows, but the oranges are. So we're talking about at least 5 to 7 inches of rain possible. And then going up, also up into the Sierra Nevadas, pushing up into southern Nevada. Las Vegas is in one of those 3, 4, 5-inch little patch of dark red there in Vegas, and western Arizona in total getting about 2 to 3 inches of rain. So that's going to ultimately, I think that is going to wind up being the bigger story here with Hillary.
Yes, the rainfall. I mean, when people hear about a tropical cyclone, the first thing that comes to their mind is wind. And usually, more often than not, it's not so much the wind, it's usually the rain. And indeed, a lot of that tropical moisture is going to be wrung out over the next 48 to 72 hours over Southern California. And it's kind of an amazing fact to even see even more than an inch or two fall in places like Palm Springs and Death Valley at this time of the year. That's what blows my mind. They get rain. I mean, it was certainly over the winter season, especially this past winter season, we saw how many? 9, 10, 12 atmospheric rivers, as they were called,
right,
slanting into Southern California and bringing literally billions of gallons of water, which helped put an end to the drought over there. But, that's wintertime. This is August. This isn't supposed to happen in August, but it looks like it's going to happen in a weird summer.
The European, just for laughs, is the European's actually a substantial distance to the left of the GFS and the Canadian. So it keeps the center. It brings rain more into Southern California, but it would probably keep the rains from getting too far out of control because most of the energy is offshore, and you see it just sort of drags the low northwestward offshore, and it still has an identifiable low when it gets up almost to San Francisco, believe it or not. But obviously at that point, it's not going to, it's long gone as far as being a tropical system. But all that moisture is going to get spent out somehow, and you're right, Joe. It just, it's all going around that big ridge, the western side of the big ridge. The moisture gets pulled up into the northwest and then gradually just sort of separates and it's gone. So this is not going to be something that we even remotely have to be concerned about for some sort of remnants. In the east, you get the systems that come in. They make landfall in the Gulf of Mexico. Sometimes they even make landfall in the western Gulf of Mexico, like we saw with Ida a couple of years ago. And we all know what happened with Ida when it went across eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England. Because apparently nobody else knew about it except us. But nonetheless, it is not something that we need to concern ourselves with here in the East. We are in a much better place, don't you think?
This week,
for this weekend and into early next week.
I know for me, not necessarily for New York tri-state area, but I know for me on Saturday, it's going to be sweater weather, believe it or not. And Chuck Cardillo says he just called his cousin Angelo. I think he meant to type Angelo. It
Angelo.
Says Anfilo, but
Chuck is Italian. He's got a cousin named Angelo.
Yes.
You're Italian. You have a cousin named Angelo. You have an uncle named Angelo.
In Scottsdale, Arizona, they expect thunderstorms with temperatures in the mid-90s.
Ugh.
Yes.
Warm water bath with your clothes on. Ugh. Yuck.
So anyway, we still have this front that's located south of us.
Hang on, Joe. Okay. Briefly took an internet hit, so I didn't intentionally pause the show for 10 seconds for station identification. Right. So just put it that way. This
is the NBC television network.
Right. The old frontal boundary is just kind of still sitting offshore. There's a low analyzed over the southern part of the Delmarva Peninsula this evening. It's sort of a no man's land flow in the northeast today and in the mid-Atlantic states, just sort of weak pressure features here. And then we have, of course, the next cold front that is back in Minnesota, cutting through South Dakota, where the air behind it is exceptionally dry, and that is moving rather quickly eastward, and is going to be the weather maker for Thursday night and Friday as it approaches. But for now, obviously there's not a whole lot going on. We have this stalled frontal boundary through the Carolinas down to southern Louisiana and down along the coastal bend of Texas. So it's east of that frontal boundary that at the moment we're seeing some showers and thunderstorms. And the loop shows, you see where the lightning strikes are tonight, coastal North and South Carolina. And also in northern, southern Georgia and scattered about in Florida. We've got some flashes of lightning going on with the monsoons in the southwest. And you see the clouds that are moving through Minnesota and into Wisconsin, northern Wisconsin. It's got that look. That's the next cold front, and the radar there is actually showing when it will come up. And you can see there are some. It's actually a fairly decent looking line of storms here now that is moving out of Minnesota and into northwest Wisconsin and approaching the upper peninsula of Michigan. Thunderstorm warnings that are in play in northwestern Wisconsin. And meanwhile, Joe, I can't really see this radar. It doesn't go tight enough. I could see scattered cells up right along Route 84. Is that you?
Well, we have one, as I said, there's one cell, one tiny little cell that, I mean, it doesn't show up very much on your view because it is, relatively small in contrast, but it's over us. And we have had, in the last 90 minutes or so, 0.7 of an inch of rain. And it's been coming down at variations, usually light to moderate and sometimes moderate to heavy, and even for short spurts, torrential. No thunder, no convection, but it's and I wouldn't expect convection because it really wasn't at all a very warm day today,
Yeah.
although we have high dew point temperatures. But yeah, what you're seeing right now over parts of Putnam County, moving into, I guess, extreme western Connecticut, crossing the border into Fairfield County, that has been dumping lots of rain over yours truly.
Yes, it has. Looks like there's another little cell behind it that's coming along. It wants to test your French drain.
Yeah, my French drain.
Storm Prediction Center, slight risk for the Minnesota-Wisconsin storms. There's more in Wisconsin now in the upper peninsula of Michigan. That comes down with a 2% tornado risk. Otherwise, there's not a whole lot. There's marginal risk. Extreme southeastern North Carolina, coastal South Carolina to South Georgia, and much of the state of Florida, except the extreme south, at a marginal risk for severe weather. Now, tomorrow, which is Thursday, we have a marginal risk in the lower peninsula of Michigan, eastern Indiana, and the northwestern half of Ohio, and that does not come with tornado risk. And now for day 3, SPC's got, now this forecast has not been updated since early this morning. They only do the day 3 forecast once a day. And they have a marginal risk for central Long Island, much of southern and southeastern New England, as well as a good chunk of central New England as well, and up into southwestern Maine, southeastern Maine. I never could figure out how to decide what's southwest or southeast in Maine. I'm guessing southwest Maine. But in terms of the timing of this for Friday, it's sort of a little tricky. I thought that maybe the bulk of it would be sometime, late Thursday night into Friday morning, or maybe into midday, and then start to pull at least in the areas south. In New England, it's going to be a different story, particularly up in northeastern New England. But I was thinking that the main threat, if there's going to be any isolated severe thunderstorms, will probably come more in the earlier part of the day than in the latter part of the day.
I agree with you. I think, in fact, we probably here in the tri-state area will probably see, I'm not going to say anything about severe, but in terms of showers and scattered thunderstorms from late tomorrow night into the early part of the day on Friday. And then, as I said, once the front moves on through, that should pretty much put a capper on any of the precipitation. And in fact, things may quite noticeably improve here with developing sunshine, lowering dew points, and drier air and a gusty breeze coming in during the afternoon hours on Friday, leading us into what looks to be a very nice weekend.
I've got the European surface up, and you can see the cold front moving through the Great Lakes. It's a sharp arm that's swinging through, and there is some development of some thunderstorms uh, late in the day tomorrow, at least in terms of the rainfall. I can't see what the radar presentation of the European looks like. This is just showing precip. And then here we are for Friday morning. And this is at 11 o'clock in the morning. The front is right on the coast. So I think it's going to be, again, the early part of the day. But I think things will improve in the afternoon. Dew points will start dropping off during the afternoon from west to east, and that should bring in nice dry air for Saturday and for Sunday. Saturday, I think, is going to be, at least from southern New York and points southward, is going to be a really nice day. Upper 70s to low 80s, dew points in the very comfortable low and mid 50s. There might even be the odd upper 40s dew point in a few spots. And beyond that, now Sunday, the thing is you'll start to warm up with a west wind. So it will probably be mid to upper 80s, but the dew points will come up, but I don't think they're going to come up to a point where you could say it's truly uncomfortable. I think they'll be tolerable on Sunday.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you have low 50s dew points on Saturday, they still probably will be upper 50s to near 60 on Sunday. I know 60 is considered to be the beginnings of muggy weather, but still, upper 50s. And when you consider what we have been through for much of the last couple of months up here, more often than not, it's been in the well into the 60s. So certainly a very tolerable Sunday as well. And then we have looks like one warm day, and that'll be, or warm to hot day on Monday, before things again cave, with hopefully a cooler and drier air mass building in for Tuesday or Wednesday of next week.
Yeah, the European's a little slower. Looks like it brings the front through here sometime Tuesday night. It comes through with not much weather, but it does show more, probably chances for showers and storms up in northern New England and northern New York, given the track of the low moving southeastward. And yeah, there's another dry high that comes in right behind it. So, um, by the way, Boston has also, not only New York, Central Park in New York City, but Boston has not technically had a heat wave this summer.
Right.
So it doesn't look as if it's going to happen, because it probably has no shot, even in this instance, if you were to say that maybe if the front holds off till Tuesday evening, that perhaps you'll have 2 days in a row of plus 90, but that's it, because here comes the next dry high. So it's the other thing is that the European, by the way, for those of you thinking about the tropics, there's some kind of there's an inverted trough and a tropical wave that's approaching Florida, which is one of the reasons why they're forecasting big rays. The European actually moves that westward and does attempt to try to develop something as it moves along the Texas coast, but doesn't really do much with it. But this is something that the Hurricane Center did mention, and I'll get to that in a moment. I want to just switch over to the GFS to run us through for next week, and I'll roll back. Now, the GFS is a little different to some extent because, it's fine through Sunday. And then it's got, there's like some kind of little back door here on Monday that runs from about Boston to just New York, just to about to New York, so just north of New York City. It's very weak, but it's there. But it's got northeast isobars here by Monday afternoon, believe it or not. So for eastern PA to southern New England. And then that goes out, and the main cold front that comes through Tuesday evening. So the GFS is a little faster with the cold front. And then here comes the next dry high for Wednesday into Thursday of next week.
It looks like, Joe, as we now move toward the second half or into the second half of August, that we're beginning to see now more frequent outbreaks from Canada of cooler and drier air. And in fact, if you care to, I could bring up the long-term outlooks from CPC, the Climate Prediction Center. And if you like cooler weather, the place to be over the next couple of weeks is here in the Northeast, where we're going to be enjoying near or below normal temperatures, while the rest of the country seems to be in the above normal category in terms of heat. It looks like still
There you go. You're on. Go ahead.
All right. Hang on for a second. Now I'm getting older, so it's taking me a little more time to do this. No, I don't want. I type in CPC on the Google to get Climate Prediction Center. Instead, what do I get? Certified Professional Coder certification, whatever the heck that means. Yeah, and going to share the screen. Screen share. Bada boom. And so take a look at this, folks. Whoops, that's a little bit too close. Take a look at this. Just about everybody in the United States, save maybe for the desert Southwest, where they have below normal temperatures. Now, probably it's because of monsoonal rains that will be holding the temperatures down a bit. But look at the Northeast. Look at Pennsylvania. Look at New York, New Jersey, and all of New England in below normal or probability of below normal temperatures. This is.
And look who's above normal. Me.
Oh, yes.
Oh, by the way, I was 58 this morning. Beautiful morning. I went outside as soon as it was light enough, which frightened me. Believe it or not, Joe, I had to wait till 7 o'clock for it to be light enough to go out. 7 a.m. And I went out and painted my shed this morning, which I got it done. It took me an hour and a half, and it's done. So anyway, go on.
Well, I mean, right here, this would be a slice of eastern Texas, Louisiana, extreme southern Arkansas, most of Mississippi and Alabama, and a slice of the western half of the panhandle of Texas. All of this here, 80 to 90% probability of above normal temperatures. You're not quite in that zone, Joe, but according to this, you'll be seeing your fair share of warmer than normal or hotter than normal conditions over the next 6 to 10 days. And even on the 8 to 14 day analysis, they still have the north end. And this takes us now to almost to the end of August. So yeah, according to the Climate Prediction Center, and I might also point out that the Climate Prediction Center, in their extended or their experimental 3 to 4 week prognosis of the country a few weeks ago, had most of our area in above normal, but now that has changed certainly.
Well, you know what? They're fighting the pattern. Even though the models were for a while were trying to show, okay, the big ridge was going to build, the jet was going to pull up into Canada, they keep fighting against this primary pattern that we've been in since late June. Troughs keep wanting to drop into the east, and this is a perfect case of the trend is your friend. That pattern just simply does not want to break down, and I don't see anything anytime soon that's going to create a change. So
look at how this upper air pattern coming down from Canada and across the Northeast. Look at how effective it has been and will be in suppressing all of the extreme heat night after night. When I'm turning on the evening news, that's all I'm hearing is all the extreme heat, 100 million or 150 million people still sweltering in extreme heat. And for us here in the Northeast, this has been the place to be this summer. As we pointed out, New York, Boston, still yet to put together or string together 3 90-degree days, yet to see a heat wave, quote unquote. So we've been sitting pretty. We've been sitting pretty. We've had our fair share of humidity, which has made things very oppressive and still rather uncomfortable. Been more of a humid summer than a hot summer. But the extreme heat, because of this flow, has been suppressed efficiently well off to the south and to the southwest of our area.
Yep. Agreed. Let's just really quick do a check on the tropics. You're going to have to unshare and share again, Joe, because you disappeared. But the Hurricane Center is highlighting 3 areas in the next 7 days. 2 of them out in the tropical Atlantic, and both of them, they now have a 50% probability of development in the next 7 days, a 30% probability of development in the next 48 hours. And then they do highlight the area in the Gulf of Mexico that's going to be there at the beginning of next week, and saying some slow development of this system is possible as it moves westward and approaches the western Gulf coastline by the middle part of next week. So it's going to move fairly quickly across the Gulf of Mexico, so may not have a whole lot of time to do anything. But of course, when we get to next show, which is Sunday, we'll certainly talk about it. And you know, that's pretty much it. Joe, I have a Briller Jeopardy, but I'm gonna hold it till next Monday because I have something I have to do
Okay.
this evening. So I'm gonna wrap the show up a little bit early tonight. What else is I have anything else to tell everybody? No, I'm pretty well. I'm pretty well done. Are you?
I've been well done for quite some time.
Yes. Our medium for tonight is. Our medium for tonight is.
What are you talking about?
I'm quoting Fred Mertz. Our medium for tonight is.
I have to tell you something, Joe.
No, not
It's a long time since I've seen I Love Lucy.
Okay. Our medium for tonight is Madame Rare. Okay. And
So
Tisha takes a bow and he says, "Well done, medium rare." Show and show weather show.
They're still running on Channel 11 here in New York, The Honeymooners on Saturday night. No I Love Lucy. I wish Channel 5, I think Channel 5 is the station that has the rights to.
Just watch it on Freebie, for God's sake.
I know that. I understand that. You can do that. But I mean, like, it deserves to be on broadcast
Nobody
TV.
watches legacy TV anymore.
Wow.
Omni True Value Hardware. That's what we're brought to you by. Sand, mulch, topsoil, and everything else you need. 631-756-1125 for the best prices in town. The website is
OmniTrueValue.com.
And Tempest by Weatherflow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system. Join the fastest growing observing network on the planet. Links at the top of the chat board and on the descriptor to this video. The coupon code is I want a weather station. And if you do want a weather station and you get a weather station or anything else from their website, you get
10% off. And I believe the only one who hit Super Chat tonight was Brandon Doherty at the very beginning of the show. So thank you, Brandon.
All right. All right, everybody, have a great weekend. Again, no show tomorrow. Sunday, 7 p.m. Okay? See you then. Bye.
Bye.